Hi, in case you missed it.
Well, the end of the world, we're being told, is now closer than ever it's ever been.
Is it the end of the world as we know it, or just a hacker's hope?
Cause for concern. Concern that we've only got a year left on the planet.
There was Y2K at the end of the last century.
End of the world.
The California prophet of doom who predicted the biblical end of days
is apparently scaring people who actually think the world may end soon. So who do you call when you think the world is ending in 3 years?
And when you can do nothing about it, that crushing feeling begins to fester, and you begin to fall into the same trap that I've fallen in. And when you fall into a trap, what do? You try to escape. To my rescue, I found a site that sat there, waiting to grant me the answers I need. Damn. Having exhausted my options, I knew I had to pursue my search deeper, into the coldest, most depraved, and desolate corners imaginable. The voluntary human extinction movement is the work of Les Unite, who transformed himself from substitute teacher into VHEMT's founder in 1991. The foundation follows antinatalism, which believes that having children is morally wrong, and those who brought you into this world are the devil. In his eyes, overpopulation is leading the world to its end, and the promise of saving the world comes with one simple idea, that we become the last generation. May we live long and die out. But before busting out the cyanide cocktail, let me finish. Early 2000s come, and VHEMT, I hate saying that, is receiving a very wild and sudden flash of attention for seemingly all the wrong reasons. Holy shit, it's the green M&M guy.
Green M&M, you will notice, is no longer wearing sexy boots. Transition from high stilettos to lower block heels. Also less sexy. Orange M&M does appear very anxious. Maybe he doesn't like all the ugly new shoes he sees around him. Maybe he liked the sexy boots.
Maybe the Orange M&M is a new show. I don't know.
Even under the pretense of saving the world, there was still a lack of public reception stemming from those who found it extreme. Maybe the idea to them came off as cynical and barbaric. Maybe it was the second slogan they went with that just wasn't doing it. Maybe they just hadn't bought the bumper sticker. Maybe I need to buy the whole stock. Maybe I need to start sticking them on cars that aren't mine. Knight's interviews feature a lot of clarifying and name clearing on his part. He aimed to argue that VHEMT wants to express care for those who are here in our world, but just not bring in more. He lays out his priorities in reproductive education, healthcare, and family planning, which, contrary to what the name might entail, VHEMT has shown disavowed towards practices like this one, and this one that I don't think I'm allowed to say out loud, like it's Voldemort. From its core, supporters will avow VHEMT as anti-creation, whereas detractors will interpret it as pro-genocide. And as for the end of this world, this removes the painting of an inferno or great collapse of the world's end, but a slow dwindle. But for me, that crushing weight bared heavier than before, and my mind raced scrambling, trying to figure something out that's different than this, and I couldn't stop. And that's when one bleary search grew down into a rabbit hole, and the solutions that came proved more and more extreme. I want you to meet E.O. Wilson. Born in the southern part of America, but not South America, the part of America that is, I'm doing a poor job, lived as a founder and academic of sociobiology, where he taught at Harvard. He spent a good chunk of his life in academics, studying the relation of ant colonies, even traveling around the globe to do so. Studying is where he saw the impact people had on the earth, in threat towards animal life and biodiversity. This inspiration drew him to not only a theory, but a plan. Wilson's proposal for world salvation became known as the Half-Earth Project. As of now, about 10 to 15% of Earth is protected. Areas that can't be built on are mutually agreed just to leave alone. But Wilson's pitch allows that at least half the Earth be converted into protected land. By making this change, Wilson theorizes that 80% of Earth's existing biodiversity would be saved from the dangers imposed by human meddling and industrialization. This means that the human population becomes permitted to build, live, pretty much exist on specifically plotted land. That, of course, this 50% is not just cut straight down the middle, old split custody style, but rather sectioned off by Wilson himself to preserve the areas of Earth that allow for the most biodiverse prosperity. He maps out areas that would be given up, but I'll say his vision lacked clarity on what areas give up specifically. I don't understand why we're protecting this land. It would look great with a parking lot. But even in standing by the project, Wilson would admit the inhumaneness if this were to be practically carried out in its full extent. But even in his wake, the Half-Earth Project is still very much active, and the E.O. Wilson Biodiversity Foundation came to be. Fantastic. But for me, another shot in trying to save this place completely down the drain. And there I was, driving aimlessly without anything around.
No. No, what the fuck? Oh, okay. Man, what the fuck?
2006. At the Texas Academy of Science, a ceremony is taking place. Present at this event is university professor Eric Pianka. Pianka is probably one of the more interesting dudes you'll ever meet. He spent his early childhood raised by a family along a military base. And it would be at said base where at 13 years old he would suffer the grunt of a bazooka blast that left him with permanent disability in one of his legs. This was the early 1950s. However, this never swayed his sparked interest in ecology, specifically studying herpetology, the study of reptiles, earning him the title of lizard man. That is so sick. His studies brought him around the world, even into his 40s, both studying his specialty of desert habitats and beyond as well. To Pianka's own admission, he spent 10 of these years living in the desert amongst a herd of bison that he owns, which I would completely dunk on if he didn't have any proof, but he does. But this brings us back to that lecture hall. Pianka is seen walking to the stage's front, having just been awarded the title of Distinguished Scientist for his studies in, you'll never guess this one, ecology and biodiversity, as well as his teachings in zoology. Grateful in being entitled in such an honor, Pianka is compelled to make a speech, and in reference to his world studies, he begins. He discussed what he saw from his perspective, being the world coming to an end, and expressing delusion in those looking to minimize these issues. Bear in mind that Pianka takes the lens of an ecologist, but that doesn't stop the topic from moving to the Ebola epidemic at the time and its effect in killing people off. Things get rocky. He retorted on the topic of wiping out humanity that Ebola would be better suited for this job relative to that of HIV, which worked too slow. He's skating on thin ice. The world would be better off without 90% of us. The ice has shattered, it's disintegrated, it's gone. His speech concludes and is met with a standing ovation by the audience of several hundred scientists, but it wasn't the larger crowd that Pianka was focused on, no. Rather, his attention is drawn to a small subsection that hadn't applauded or even stood up. They sit there looking rather pissed, but also taking notes. The event isn't recorded, so whatever's written on that paper is the sole dictator of how Pianka's words are interpreted and spread. Surely that's not gonna, oh fuck. And when all this word began to go out, the ranging criticism began coming in. This then escalated to death threats. As he adopted his newly given name, Dr. Doom.
Why are his nicknames so cool?
Please don't take this as me saying that the late Eric Pianka was some sort of supervillain. I mean nothing of the sort. But like, come on, his response reads exactly like a manifesto. Again, the bottom line is that we can't control ourselves. Microbes like Ebola will do it for us, and that won't be much fun. Wildlife management is a complete joke. Wait, hold on. We humans cannot even find the will to control our own populations. Homo sapiens indeed. Humans might be more fittingly called Homo the Sap. What the fuck does that mean? That sounded more homophobic than I was expecting. To him, people are like bacteria on agar plates that mindlessly occupy as much space as possible before another microbe takes over and leaves the previous population extinct. Specifically with overpopulation,
we are an epidemic waiting to happen. And because we're so mobile and so dense, we can get on airplanes and fly across oceans.
No, I think
disease is going to spread fast. And the people who've studied this, the epidemiologists
that's a common view,
and medical people are very, very concerned about the next pandemic. Good. I'm saying if we don't control our population, the microbes will.
Did I mention this was 2006, by the way? That's... I don't know, man. That's a little spooky. But in the aftermath following, he afforded efforts to clarify his point and clear his name. But whether this was to people that were going to listen or people that weren't, he stood firm in the fact that, from an ecologist perspective, the way to save us from the world's end was to remove us from the equation. Which just leaves you there realizing that he revealed no real set of action to save us. Just inaction, instead of making us the saviors, rather stops us from being the destroyers. It doesn't feel right. Every initiative and cause became overshadowed by this, and I feel the doom, trying to find one solution after another, and they just fall flat. It's just like I'm looking for something that isn't. Hey everyone, abrupt end to the video here. It's currently 2:22 a.m. and I am sitting here in a Mario-themed apartment that isn't mine. No, it's not from a party, and no, you will not be receiving any context. I think it's funnier if it's gone unsaid. What I will give context though, in my life, just a lot of changes happening really, really fast. I remember a few months ago it feeling the exact same, and then things sorted, were dealt with, passed. A few months before, I recall the same thing happening. It's this weirdly consistent cycle that every time it feels strangely new. It's like watching the same plot of an episode every single time, but just because the characters are different, or just because the show's different or something. So for some reason, it just feels completely new. In my isolated world, they just seem like the biggest thing in the world. Like, if it didn't pan out, what was I gonna do? What was gonna happen to me? Putting it into perspective just made it seem like so small. There's very few phrases that you can actually just apply to everything, but one of them really is just, it isn't the end of the